Okay, hi everyone. My name is Alex. I'm working for Mesosphere on the core team, so I'm working on Mesos mostly. And today I will do an unusual talk for me. So normally I'm do talks about Mesos new features, about bleeding edge technology that we add into Mesos and how it works and how it doesn't work. But today I will try us to think about in what direction the industry is going and how we can maybe help to be there a little bit faster, sooner than the normal pace. And first, I will touch on containers a little bit from my selfish perspective, from the perspective of a developer, of a cluster manager. Then I will talk a little bit about what is the difference between Mesos, DCOS, and why should you be interested in these things. Then I'll share my thoughts about what we should inspect in the next 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 years. And at the end, I will answer some questions that pop up every now and then on meetups, on conferences, on the internet, since we open source DCOS. So I don't want to talk more about this. I think everyone has their own opinion about containers, but I would like to share two things from my perspective why containers are great. And these two things, these are two hints about these two things. What do you think these things are? Remember, I'm an engineer of a cluster manager. These are the hints from the desktop operating systems era. Can you see it well? Yeah, you can. That's the calculator app. That's the macOS. That's the calculator app open here. So I click the show package contents. Anyone? Just a random guess? Okay. And this is if you see this as a segfault. Okay, then. I don't think I surprised you a lot. So there's two things. First are the packaging, and the second is isolation. So if you design and implement a system that has to map tasks, like 1 million tasks on 1,000 nodes, you have enough problems. And if someone can take care about the package that the task is just a single unit, an app bundle, and your job is to schedule this app bundle somewhere, it helps a lot. You don't have to care about the URIs, you don't have to care about the configs, you don't have to care about dependency as long as the thing that takes care about it works, and it works most of the time. And the second thing is that it doesn't really make sense to do resource management and schedule things if you cannot make sure that they can steal resources from one another. Like if you have an agent with 10 CPUs, and your task says, well, I will be using 1 CPU, and you do internal accounting and bookkeeping that you have still 9 CPUs left, and you give these 9 CPUs to another production task, and then the first one starts using 5 instead of 1, it doesn't really make sense for you to do all this bookkeeping and to schedule the workloads properly. So now we have containers, we have Docker, we have Docker daemon, everything works, but is this enough? Or we still have some problems to solve? And unfortunately we do. As I said before, if you have 1,000 of nodes and 1 million of tasks, you still have to map these tasks to nodes, and that's not what people want to do. Usually people want to say, well, here is my application, I need 5 or 3 or 7, in some cases just 1 instance of this application running somewhere in the cluster, maybe with some additional constraints, like I need 2 instances in Europe and 2 in the US. And 1 in Germany, especially because German law doesn't allow you to run your tasks in France, for example. But you don't want to create this mapping manually. This is how we run data centers today most of the time. And this is pretty much ridiculous. So now coming back to what Mesos allows you to do. Mesos allows you to treat your cluster not as a collection of resources, of single resources like CPU, memory, disk. It allows you to get them together and treat them as one single computer. And instead of having agent with different amounts of resources, you just have 100, 1,000, 1 million CPUs in your cluster. And Mesos does this mapping for you. In order to understand what the difference between DCOS and Mesos is, we normally use this analogy between Linux kernel and the complete operating system. If the Mesos does the resource management, you still need a lot of tools that will take care about networking, about CLI, about UI, about monitoring, about security. And in Mesos, we strive to keep Mesos simple and small in order to make sure that it's scalable and it works fine. And we add primitives and that allows other people to build tools or frameworks using these primitives. And that's actually how desktop operating systems work. You have the kernel that manages resources for you, and you have all these tools, which most of these tools are open source, that do their own job. And DCOS is exactly this. It's an umbrella project that combines around 30 other open source projects together and just make sure that they play well with each other. And the biggest reason why we decided to open source DCOS is because, well, let me start first with the reason why we decided to do DCOS in the first place. Because we're seeing people solving the same or similar problems again and again and again. And not everyone has the engineering power of Apple, who can just take Mesos and build their own framework on top of that to run Siri, or the engineering power of Twitter, who has their own framework that runs in production. And people were repeating things again and again. That's how we decided to do DCOS. And then we realized that some people need almost exactly what we provide, but maybe slightly different, that one part is a little bit different. Like maybe you don't have DCOS in your data center, which is strange, but fine. So most probably have your own service discovery solution, and you would like to take everything else that DCOS provides you on top of Mesos, but you would like to take out the Mesos DNS and to put in your solution that works for your data center. And the best way to do it, if you just get the DCOS, understand how it works, take out the discovery solution we provide, and put something that you need. Our main goal is to let people focus on what's important to their business from what they get in money, instead of investing time into building infrastructure and to do things again and again and again. I know today it's a hot topic in France, the relationship between employers and employees, and we don't want we don't want DevOps engineers to lose their jobs. We just want DevOps engineers to focus on what things that they need to do instead of how to do them. So we strive to make the interfaces and API clear, so that people can understand how can they can easily express what they need using the language and APIs we provide, and focus about what exactly they need. What is the best solution in this case for this particular problem, how the cluster should look like, how the cluster should be configured. There is a good example of this, the company called Autodesk. They're using Mesos and DCOS for more than 1 year, and they're pretty satisfied with this. And one thing I particularly like, that they don't have big clusters, they have multiple DCOS clusters in different regions, but they have just one engineer who makes sure that cluster work. And the resources that they freed, they can reuse by solving problems that are differentiators for their business. Now I would like to share my thoughts about what we should expect in the nearest future. And first of all, there are a lot of things to do, and not only at Mesosphere, but in the communities and people who use these products. We hope for your feedback about how we can improve our systems for you so that they're easier for you to use. And the first argument that almost always pop-ups when you talk about containers and all this new technology with people who are running virtual machines. They say, well, containers are not secure. So you can forget about multi-tenancy. We'd better put each task or each application into its own VM. I did short Googling, and even in 2015, 2016, there are bugs in VMs and bugs in CPUs that makes VM actually not secure as well. Maybe, yes, Docker is not as secure as VMs are, but Docker is much younger. And I'm pretty sure that Docker will fix everything, not everything, they will fix their bugs to the point then there will be the same amount of bugs in Docker and the EVMs maybe even less because the amount of code needed to support containers hopefully will be less than the amount of code needed to support virtual machines. So I think this argument will be busted in 1 or 2 years. The second thing is that I think that cluster managers will move towards smarter isolation. I'm pretty sure that Google now internally uses their tool called CPI squared, which allows them to heuristically understand heuristically see which task or which applications conflict with one another. And that's how they improve multi-tenancy and improve experience for production tasks. And I think in this area we still have a lot to do, how to allow people to express isolation requirements finer and on more general level, and instead of just saying, well, this task should consume 2 CPUs. How to express bandwidth, how to express cache performance. The next thing is competition in this area, and I think competition is a great thing, and competition makes us think about how we can improve our systems and do it faster and better. But in this case, like in the case of desktop operating systems or mobile operating systems, I don't think that the winner takes it all. Systems are still different. They have their own opinions about how things and data centers should be run. And most probably there will be different tasks and different situations when different system will work better. The third thing that people tend to underestimate is growing the community. So when I say, well, community is important and it's hard, it's very hard. It's very hard when the community is growing to let new people come and help you with these things, which are definitely not the easiest things in the world, and still maintain this development speed, maintain the quality. By no means we may let the quality to deteriorate, and to minimize the frustrations of contributors, of new contributors trying to help us. And in order to show you how we think that the community is important, I just want to, I brought up one Mesos ticket, which is about renaming all instances of slave to agent. We invested a lot of time, a lot of money, and a lot of discussions between companies, between all the companies that are in the Mesos community, how and what are the steps in order to rename the, well, actually standard computer science term slave into agent, so that some people are not offended by this term. Another example is that Docker invests a lot of time, and their maintainers work closely to new contributors, hand-holding them and making sure that the experience of contributing a new patch is smooth and nice. And if you just imagine that a maintainer who is an expert in this field and who is actually the bottleneck spends a lot of time with the community, I think if you think about it, you understand that all these companies that invest a lot of time and effort into growing the community and make sure that community is happy. I think the APIs will stabilize, and there will be standard solutions. There will be more, people will become more familiar, and people will become more comfortable with scenarios in which they should or they shouldn't use certain open source additions to cluster managers. And we definitely, as I said, we want to make API, and we want to make the language in which you express your intent, how to run the cluster, easy and easy to understand, easy to maintain. The next thing that will come after people will become more familiar with all these new technology, then the architecture of how we run data centers will become simpler. Like now, for example, if you take for example, you take the GCE cloud, there are VMs which are running in containers in a Borg-like system. I confirmed with Alexa that it's not Borg, it's a different system, and which is running on hardware. And then you run on DCOS on top of the VMs that are running in containers, and then you run your task in a container in DCOS, which runs on top of the VM that are running in containers. This is pretty much ridiculous. This is not how things are going to work, and that's not how things are going to scale. And again, our intent is to let people think about how to solve the particular problem, the particular business problem with the technology that is available on the market, instead of thinking how you can configure your infrastructure and make things work. I hope one day, I don't know when, you will be able to use your smartphone that is charging and to use the resources of the smartphone that are idle and to let the smartphone join the cloud and do some computation. And in the end, I hope there will be no agents, there will be no resource, there will be no nodes, there will be no computers, no operating system. There will be just a bus to which you will plug in CPU, memory, disk, and there will be external computational agents like your phones that can be temporarily connected to the bus and do some computation. And the last thing, people care less about currently, but I think they will start caring about these things much more in the nearest future when they become more comfortable with technology, is higher utilization. In this year, at the beginning of this year, we did a survey about DevOps engineers running Mesos clusters about what are the what do they care about more. And if you look at this, people don't really care about cost savings now. And I think it means that they're trying to get things right, they're trying to get things running, and they want things to be stable and want to understand and get experience. But once they do that, they will think a lot about costs. And again, it's not high utilization is not about just costs that you're saving on AWS bills. It's also about the electricity and the code you don't have to burn. And if you have a server with a web application that, I don't know, serves 1,000 requests per day, it doesn't make sense to run a complete server or even a VM all the time for these servers to work. As I promised, I will ask several questions that pop up again and again, and people were asking me these questions yesterday, and I think they will ask them after that, so I will ask these questions myself now. So the first is, will DCOS kill Apache Mesos? I think that's not possible, that DCOS will kill Mesos, because Mesos is an essential part of DCOS, and by no means we are going to rewrite it. The next question is whether Mesosphere will kill Mesos. People often ask us because Mesosphere, most active Mesos commuters work at Mesosphere, and Mesosphere now pushes DCOS and advertises DCOS, so people come up with this valid question. But I think, again, our management, they are all engineers, they have engineering background, and I don't think that will happen anyway. That will happen anytime in the future. And the last question is that, will DCOS kill Mesosphere? And I think the answer is 42. And I think I already exhausted the amount of free prophecies for today. So I'll leave this question open. And at the end, there will be no demo. We did the demo yesterday. So coming back from the future of computing, of cluster managers into the past, into the yesterday. We did a demo yesterday with my colleague Phil. But I know that Phil is going to do demo today. He will demo DCOS, so if you're interested, come to his talk. And at the end, I would like to encourage all of you to help us improve on these things. If you don't work to join Mesosphere, it's fine. You can also help us by testing out these things, understanding what is missing, understanding what we should add to in order to enable you to use these things. Try Docker Swarm, try Kubernetes, try DCOS, write blog posts about them, how they were helpful and how they were not, and why they were not helpful. And by doing this, you will contribute a lot to the community and to the distributed computational systems in general. I think we have some time for questions. Any questions? Yes, please. So the question is, will Mesos use etcd? Maybe one day. The question is, my question to you, why do you think that Mesos should use etcd? What is the extra value? So now Mesos uses Zookeeper for leader election. And I think the only reason why Mesos should use etcd, if you already have etcd and you would like to reuse it for Mesos cluster. And we recently modularized the part that is responsible for leader election. So the only thing that we need to add is to add a module that talks to etcd and provides leader election to Mesos. So in short, the answer is yes, one day, but it's not the highest priority right now. So the question is, will it be possible to load Mesos modules at runtime in some point? I think it's a good question. And right now, why do you want this?
Well, because, for example, if you want to use a network isolator, you need to
right.
install the module on the cluster before it starts. So now you have a problem when you
I see.
cluster.
I see. I see. So the question is, if you would like to add a module like network isolator and you already have a running cluster, you have to install this and you decided, well, I don't want to stop my cluster, I would like to add this module, and you don't want to stop the cluster. I think, again, it's not a priority because what you can do, you can bring the agent, you can install the module, bring the agent down, and let the agent reconnect without losing your tasks. So you can already do that. So there is a good workaround for this. That's why it's not a priority. And another reason for not allowing modules to be loaded at runtime is because when loading modules, we do a lot of checks, which are only possible at the loading when we also load the current configuration. Once we make our configuration completely dynamic, then we will also can make modules dynamic loaded as well. Okay, no more questions. If you have a question later on, I will be here till the end, so you can come chat with me.
Merci Alex.